It's one of the most troubling mysteries in the United States. Here's the story of Brian Shaffer, a 27-year-old medical student who walked into a crowded bar on a spring night in 2006 and seemed to melt into thin air. No fight, no frantic call, no clear exit on camera, a son, a brother, a boyfriend, a friend. There one moment, gone the next. The search that followed would pull at every thread, chase every rumor, and test the hope of everyone who loved him. And still, the answer remains locked somewhere between those last minutes before closing time and the long, quiet years that came after. Brian was the kind of person people remembered: tall, easy smile, a calm, warm presence that made others feel at ease. He studied hard at the Ohio State University College of Medicine, but he also held on to small dreams that did not look like the life of a future doctor. He loved music. He talked about starting a band one day, about songs that felt like warm wind on a long drive, the kind you hum without even thinking. He loved the beach and the idea of a slower life. He cared deeply about the people around him, and they cared about him. That made what happened next even harder to accept. The winter before he vanished had been heavy. His mother, Renee, had passed away in March. Friends said he seemed okay on the outside, but grief does strange things in private. Some days it lets you move, some days it pins you in place. He kept going in school. He made plans with his girlfriend, Alexis, and he held tight to the trip they were about to take together. 4 days in Miami for spring break. Bright skies, warm water, time to breathe. It was a simple promise on the calendar, something to look forward to after weeks of studying. Friday, March 31st, 2006 felt like the start of a break he had earned. Classes had let out for spring break. Earlier that evening, Brian had dinner with his dad, Randy. A simple steak dinner, the kind a father and son share at the end of a rough week. Randy noticed Brian looked tired. Long study days, late nights. But the mood was hopeful. After dinner, Brian planned to meet his friend and roommate, Clint, and spend a few hours downtown. He wanted to blow off steam, laugh, and think about anything but exams. He left with the easy promise young people make on a Friday: back soon. After 9 that night, he met Clint at a bar called the Ugly Tuna Saloon, a popular hangout in the South Campus Gateway off High Street. The bar sat on the second floor, reached by an escalator and a small landing where a security camera watched the flow of people. From there, the two friends started a loose bar hop. A shot here, a drink there. The warm buzz of music and voices from one room to the next. Around 10, Brian called Alexis to say he loved her and to confirm their trip for Monday. She had gone home to Toledo to visit family first, and they would meet at the airport. Simple, steady, ordinary plans. Sometime after midnight, a friend of Clint's named Meredith offered a ride back to the Ugly Tuna. The night was getting late, and that felt like the place to end it. They reached the bar again for one last round. The floor thumped with late-night energy. People leaned in close to talk. A wave of voices rose and fell as the clock crept toward last call. Somewhere in that mix, Brian drifted away from his two companions. Maybe he went to the bathroom. Maybe he moved to say hello to someone he knew. Nights out do that. One moment you are side by side, the next you are at opposite ends of a crowded room. Near closing time, just before 2 a.m, security video on the landing by the escalator caught him outside the entrance, talking with 2 young women. Nothing looked tense, no raised voices. He said goodbye, turned toward the entrance, and stepped out of the frame. And that is where the record ends. No clear shot of him riding the escalator down. No clean angle showing him leaving by the front. A camera that caught so much failed to catch what mattered most: how he left. Here is the first sharp twist. When the bar closed, people spilled out. The escalator hummed as groups drifted down to the street. Clint and Meredith waited for Brian but did not see him. They called. They looked. It was easy to believe he slipped out another way and went home. That happens after a long night in a crowded place. People miss each other, phones die, plans change. But morning came, and the calls went unanswered. The silence gathered weight. Monday arrived, and with it the flight to Miami. The seat next to Alexis stayed empty. He did not board. He did not call to say he was running late. He did not text from the security line. The plane door closed. The wheels pulled back. The simple promise on the calendar broke without a sound. That is when the worry turned into something larger. The police were called, an official report was made, and a mystery opened like a trapdoor beneath a well-loved life. Detectives moved fast to review every second of video they could find. The Ugly Tuna's camera showed Brian, Clint, and Meredith riding up the escalator around 1:15 a.m. It showed Brian near the entrance close to closing time, then stepping out of the frame. What it did not show was an exit. There was no clear image of him coming back down the escalator. If he went down the stairs in a crowd with his head turned, a camera could miss him. If he left through a back way, there was a service door and a hallway not open to the public that led to an area under construction on the first floor. That path was tight and messy, full of debris and hard turns, difficult to walk even when sober. In theory, it led to another exit. The trouble is, theory is not proof, and no one can point to a frame that shows him taking any other path. The police widened the search. They pulled footage from nearby bars. They checked surrounding streets, alleys, and dumpsters. Officers and dogs searched the area. Flyers went up, his face, his height, the small details that help a stranger recognize someone. Brown hair, hazel eyes, a small speck in one iris, and a tattoo on his upper right arm of the stick figure from a Pearl Jam logo. Friends and family called every hospital. They checked shelters. They looked along the river. They looked in places no one wants to think about. Nothing. The 6-block walk to his King Avenue apartment would have been easy for a fit young man, but there were no signs he made it. His car still sat where he had left it. Inside the apartment, there were no packed bags, no note, no sign of a sudden plan to leave. Life looked paused, waiting for him to turn the key and pick it back up. As the first frantic days passed, the case grew more strange, not less. The idea that he had met with an accident clung to the edges of every theory. The idea that someone had hurt him also sat close. But there was the hard thought no one wanted to hold for long. Maybe he walked away. People who loved him found that hard to accept, but the truth was simple and cruel. No one knew what happened after that last moment on camera. Several people who had seen him that night agreed to take polygraphs. Meredith said she took one and passed. One friend declined. The 2 young women on the landing were identified and spoke with investigators. Questions kept coming, and each answer bent back into the same loop. Where did he go in those last minutes, and how did he slip out of sight? Time became a character in this story. It pressed down. It whispered, maybe he will call. It mocked, maybe he already did, and no one heard. A few months after he vanished, Alexis kept calling his phone before bed. Over and over, it went straight to voicemail. Then one evening in September, something different happened. The line rang 3 times before cutting off. The cell carrier would later explain this could have been a network glitch. A tower west of Columbus registered a brief signal, a ghost step, a false path, or something else. That small flicker of hope fed long nights of questions, and none of them led to a door that opened. Investigators kept watch on every piece of his life that could leave a mark. Bank accounts, credit cards, social security activity, the simple paper dust people make when they buy a coffee, pay a bill, or book a flight. None of it showed movement. This is not how a person lives if he is starting over. This is not how a person hides unless he is very, very careful, or unless he is not alive to make any of those marks. Now the tension climbs again. The service hallway was there, the back way into an area under construction. It offered a path that a camera might not catch. But even an accident in that space should have left something behind. A scent for dogs, a disturbance, a clue. People worked there in the days and weeks that followed. Crews moved through. Nothing turned up. The escalator was the main way in and out. If he rode it down with his head turned, he could have slipped by unseen, but reviewers who studied the footage said they never found the moment where he left that way. The more the case was studied, the bigger the gaps looked. The open windows led to blank walls. Spring turned to summer. Summer slid toward fall. The family kept searching. Tips came in from across Ohio, from other states, even from other countries. At a Pearl Jam concert that year, the band's singer told the crowd about Brian and asked for leads. A small moment under bright lights offered to a family waiting in the dark. None of those tips brought him back. None of them closed the gap. Loss asks for brave things. Late that year and into the next, his dad and his younger brother Derek waded through parts of the river near campus because someone had said a body might be in the water by a bridge. They pulled on waders and made their way along muddy banks because love makes people chase even the thin strands. Police considered a wider rumor that a group of killers was moving across cities, leaving a pattern others thought they saw. They looked and found no fit, no link. The facts of Brian's case did not rest on that story. The case was its own locked room. The years that followed brought a fresh kind of sorrow. In September 2008, a windstorm pushed across central Ohio. Randy was out in his yard clearing debris when a tree branch snapped and struck him. He died at 55. Neighbors found him the next day. Grief layered on grief. Not long after the obituary ran online, someone left a message in a condolence book. To Dad, love Brian, U.S., Virgin Islands. It was traced to a public computer and treated as a cruel hoax. In a case that already cut deep, that small, mean trick carved a new wound. Still, hope kept its own rhythm. Years passed and the case did not fade. Reporters returned to it. Students at Ohio State who had been kids in 2006 grew up reading about it. True crime fans picked up the thread. Podcasts, articles, and videos brought new eyes to old frames. In 2021, 15 years after that spring night, the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation released an age-progressed image of what Brian might look like in his early 40s. With the Columbus Division of Police, they asked the public to look closely, to share it, to call if anything looked familiar. They said, what every cold case team knows by heart. It only takes one tip. One right person seeing one right face in one right place. Now slow the night back down and return to the tight window where everything changed. The last hour, the last minutes. A crowded second-floor bar. An escalator. A camera pointed at a small patch of open space near the entrance. Just before 2 a.m, he is there talking to 2 women. Nothing strange. He turns toward the entrance and steps out of the frame. Inside, music swells. The pulse of closing time makes people move faster. Somewhere, a bartender wipes down a counter. A bouncer guides a group toward the exit. Friends take a quick photo under a neon sign. Down on the street, the air is cool and the city is not ready for sleep. If he walked back in and pulled on a hat, put his head down, and moved with the crowd, the camera could have missed him. If he went through the service door toward the construction area, he might have found a back way out. That route would have been risky, uneven floor, tools, barriers, blind corners. A wrong step could mean a fall. If he left that way and got hurt, there should have been signs. If someone hurt him inside or just outside the building, they did it in a window of minutes in a place full of people. That takes planning, or luck, or both. But there is no sign anyone planned something like that and no witness who saw it happen. Think about Monday morning at the airport. Alexis waits at the gate. She checks her phone. She calls. It goes to voicemail. She stares at the board where final call turns into closed. The plane pulls back from the jet bridge. The empty seat beside her says what it says. He did not come. That moment is the point where hope and fear change places. Every path from that point forward feels like a broken branch. From there, the story splits into possible paths. In one path, he chose to leave. He made a plan no one understood and slipped out to start a life far away. If that happened, he did it without touching his money. Without leaving any trace in the systems that ring when a person opens a new account, pays rent, or gets a job. He did it without one message to the person he loved, even after her calls and her tears. For people who knew him, that does not look like him. It is not impossible, but it is hard to make that picture hold together year after year. Another path says someone else made a choice. Maybe a stranger inside or outside the bar saw a chance and took it. Maybe a fast argument flared and ended where cameras could not see. If so, whoever did that left nothing then and nothing after. No brag, no slip, no connection to other crimes. Only the hollow where facts should be. In a place like that, with bouncers, bartenders, and crowds, even a clean crime is messy. Someone usually sees something. Here, no one saw what matters most. A third path says a simple accident took him in a hidden pocket of the building or nearby area. Construction zones have places where a person could fall out of sight, but crews moved through there after the night he vanished. If something like that had happened within that space, the search might have found a clue, and yet, nothing. The city's beating heart is not gentle with secrets, and still this one has held for years. Return to the hard facts because the mind wants to run. The timeline is tight. He rides up the escalator around 1:15 a.m. He is seen near the entrance close to closing time. He speaks to 2 women and steps out of the frame. He is not seen on the way down. He misses his Monday flight to Miami. He makes no calls. He moves no money. A phone rings a few months later instead of going straight to voicemail, but the carrier explains it can happen without a live call. A tower west of the city logs a brief signal. No proof of life. Just a strange tremor in the quiet. Look again at his apartment. His car sits outside. Inside, the small order of daily life holds. A few dishes, some books and notes, The ordinary mess of a young man in medical school. No sign of rushing, no bag missing, no evidence of a plan to run. The walls feel like they are waiting for the door to open. That is the harsh frame of this case. It is as if a line was cut and everything on one side is clear and everything on the other has fallen into the dark. There are details that need to be told with care. Several people agreed to take lie detector tests. One friend declined. The 2 women seen on video were identified and spoke with investigators. These are facts, but a polygraph is not a verdict. It is a tool with limits. It does not prove guilt or prove innocence. The heart wants to make easy stories out of hard nights, but this story resists that. Every time it feels simple, another question opens. There were rumors that dragged the case in directions it did not need to go. A wider theory about college-age men and a hidden killer moved across TV screens and message boards, but investigators said it did not fit here. Years later, a photo of a man in Tijuana who looked like Brian made the rounds online. It was checked and ruled out. False sparks appear in long cases like this. They are bright and empty at the same time. They raise hope and then pull it away. There were rumors that dragged the case in directions it did not need to go. A wider theory about college-age men and a hidden killer moved across TV screens and message boards, but investigators said it did not fit here. Years later, a photo of a man in Tijuana who looked like Brian made the rounds online. It was checked and ruled out. False sparks appear in long cases like this. They are bright and empty at the same time. They raise hope and then pull it away. The family kept asking for help. So did friends. So did people who never met Brian but felt close to him after learning his story. At a rock concert, a singer asked a crowd to look at his face and call if they knew anything. Years later, the age-progressed image went out across the state and beyond. The message was simple: look closely. Time changes a jawline, hair grows and grays, but the eyes can hold a shape that memory recognizes. If something in that picture pulls at a person's mind, that person should speak up. Now draw the scene again like a map. A second-floor bar in a busy campus district. An escalator that carries crowds up and down. A small landing where a camera watches a patch of light near the door. The last minutes before closing time. He stands there and talks to 2 women. He turns. He steps out of the frame. The image freezes there for anyone who tries to understand this case. On one side of that frame is a life full of plans. On the other side is a long silence. It is like an empty stage after the curtain falls. Everyone knows there was a story, but the last line is missing, and the audience sits there waiting for a voice that does not return. Think of his brother Derek. Think of birthdays and holidays and small family jokes. Think of a father who pulled on rubber waders and stepped into cold water because love can send a person anywhere. Think of Alexis at that airport gate holding a ticket to bright days. These are not just details in a file. They are the heartbeat of a story that still belongs to a living family. Every cold case has posts in the ground where the rope is tied. Here, those posts look like this. The date, April 1st, 2006. The place, the ugly Tuna Saloona. The escalator, the last sight near the entrance just before 2 in the morning. The missed flight to Miami. The phone that rang months later and then went quiet. The searches that found nothing. The public hoax that hurt a family. The age-progressed image released years later. The rope between those posts is frayed from so much pulling. There is one more beat most people do not say out loud. It is the thought that somewhere, someone knows. Maybe it is a small piece, one detail remembered by a person who did not know it mattered. A driver who saw a young man cross a side street around 2 o'clock something in the morning. A worker who heard a thud behind a locked door and brushed it off as late-night noise. A friend who held back a story because it felt too thin to share. Secrets do not always look like secrets. Sometimes they look like scraps the mind tossed aside to make room for bigger things. The right tip can turn that scrap into a key. So what can be said with care and clarity? Brian was a dedicated student who had been through a hard year. He was looking forward to a trip with the woman he loved. He went out with friends to celebrate the start of spring break. He was seen near the entrance of a crowded bar during the final minutes before closing. There is no verified video of him leaving through the main entrance. There was a service door that led to an area under construction. No evidence was found there that answered what happened. Several people close to him that night spoke with investigators. One friend did not take a polygraph, others did. A strange cell phone ring months later was explained as a possible glitch. No financial activity and no official record show him starting a new life. Years later, an age-progressed image asked the public for help. These are the fixed points. Everything else is an open question. Now let the tension rise one last time. Picture that escalator again. People ride up with the happy rush of last call energy. They ride down with the loose, tipsy sway of a night almost over. The moving steps reflect the ceiling lights like scales on a slow fish. Shoes click, laughter drifts. Outside, the air is cool enough to make the skin wake up. Somewhere keys jingle, somewhere else a door thuds shut. The city exhales, and in the middle of all that ordinary sound, a single thread snaps. A person who should be home is not. A phone that should ring does not. A trip that should start never begins. It is so simple it almost feels like nothing. But it is everything. There are 3 honest ways to hold this story. 1. He chose to leave and did it so cleanly the world never noticed. 2. Someone else made a choice that ended a young man's life and hid the truth. 3. A blind, simple accident met bad luck in a place where cameras and human eyes both missed the moment. Each path is possible. Each one has a hole the mind can't quite cross. That is why this case sits where it sits, year after year, waiting for a detail to drop like a stone into still water. If you ever walked through that district late at night, you know how a place like that feels. The echo in the stairwell, the smell of spilled beer and cleaner, the neon glow on the floor near the door. That corner of the city holds 100 stories on any given night. Laughter, fights, makeups and breakups, small victories and small defeats. Most fade by morning. A few cling to the walls. This one still lingers. It belongs to a man who deserved to grow old, to play the songs he loved, to bring joy to a crowd on a summer night, to walk on a beach with the person he loved, and to come home safe. There is a face to remember. There is a small mark in one eye that could be the thing that makes a stranger stop and look again. There is a tattoo of a little stick figure on his upper right arm that might be seen at a pool or a beach or a gym. These are the details that turn a question into an answer. If you see a face in a crowd that looks a little like the age-progressed image, take one more look. If something old in your memory stirs when you think about that night, share it. A thing that seemed too small then might be the missing piece now. The story ends for now with an open door, a long hallway, and the soft echo of footsteps no one can place. A man the world should not forget. Somewhere a person knows one part of this that has not been told. Somewhere a detail waits to be noticed by the right pair of eyes. If any clue sits in a back pocket of memory, bring it forward. If any rumor can be checked, check it. If any face looks familiar in a way that makes your heart jump, say something. Share your thoughts or your theory in the comments. Subscribe for more unsolved stories and deep dives. Like this video so it reaches the next person who might know something. Somewhere someone has the missing piece. With enough eyes and ears, the silence can break.